All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today to the regularly scheduled board meeting for the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. This is Friday, August 7th, 2026, 2 p.m. Move on to agenda item number 2, roll call. Peter?
Interrotunda.
Here.
Epstein.
Here.
Schroeder.
Here.
Tucker.
Here.
Norbert here.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda number 3, announcements. Rick?
Yes, good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Directors of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. We appreciate your attendance and encourage public participation. Members of the public will have the opportunity to address the board during the designated public comment periods. If you are participating remotely and wish to speak, please use the raise hand function feature. The board president will recognize speakers in turn and you will be unmuted when it's your opportunity to address the board. If you are attending the meeting in person and wish to speak, please raise your hand when the board president opens up public comment period. After being recognized, please come to the podium, state your name for the record, and direct your comments to the board using the podium. Using the podium ensures that your remarks are clearly heard by everyone in attendance and actually accurately captured in the meeting record. Thank you for your cooperation and your interest in the work of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District.
Great. Thank you, Rick. And I think since we're all here in person today, we can be able to do voice votes instead of roll call votes on anything that requires a vote. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, corrections to the agenda and the consent calendar. Any agenda items to be moved or any ideas of the consent calendar in agenda item number 7?
I had a couple AP questions and a shut off question.
Okay, so that will be items B and C. Or just C.
Let's see, where does it fall?
Consent for claims, or did you want consent for claims and
Where's the shut offs fall?
Shovs should be under
Page 27.
C.
Yeah.
Yeah, so B and C.
Is it
B and C.
B and C?
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I had the page numbers, but not the
Thank you.
agenda numbers.
All right. Anything else on the agenda or the consent calendar? Okay, then we'll keep A and move B and C to agenda item number 8. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address our board on short non-agenda items that are within our jurisdiction. No discussion or action items can be taken on anything that's not in the agenda for the Brown Act. And I'll remind you, if it's a comment on something that is on the agenda, then I will ask you to hold comments to that agenda item so that we can talk about it in the actual agenda item. Okay. I don't see anyone in the room, but I do see a hand up, Rick, so if you can unmute.
Hi there, this is Michelle Souza. I'm a resident at Sentinels West. And I'm just wondering, would you like me to hold the question about emergency medical services till the fire chief search section, or is my comment, my question welcome now?
I think let's welcome it now.
Okay, all right, thank you. As you may know, I am concerned about what seems to be lack of emergency medical services during non-resort hours. I'm concerned because when my husband and I are up there, you know, we're getting up there in years, and if one of us has a heart attack, I would like to know that I don't need to buy my own defibrillator to try to keep us alive for 45 minutes until the ambulance comes. So from a personal standpoint, I have a vested interest in this. And also from like a community-wide standpoint, I have an interest in this because my understanding is that it's professional practice for communities to base emergency medical services and wildfire protection planning on a community risk assessment and a standards of cover study. So I would like to know, has Kirkwood ever commissioned these type of assessments or studies? If so, when, how long ago? And if not, why not?
Sure. Thanks for your comment, Michelle. We talked about, you sent this your longer comment in the last board meeting. I'll just acknowledge that we talked about it a little bit last time, but I appreciate you bringing this up here. In terms of your direct comment and question for today, my understanding it was 2018, Rick, was when 17-18 was the last time we had done an assessment in fire services and like a master planning approach. I think I'll look to my counterparts here in the county. I want to say it was 2000s-ish when the last time Alpine County did theirs? Anyone? Alpine County? But I believe, Michelle, we had sent you the 2018 report and a previous email request. And I
Yep,
think
it doesn't seem to address emergency medical services. That seems to be like kind of an afterthought in all of this. And also, I believe that that plan was due for periodic updates. That plan even says that it was supposed to be updated in 2023. I'm just really curious as to why overall in the Kirkwood community, we seem to be operating with some outdated plans and plans that don't have things in them that are important to the community, like provisions for emergency medical services.
history on that.
I would say that since that plan was written, we've spent the last 10 years trying to find a way to finance moving off of a volunteer service. So there would be people that could work on the issues you're identifying, and we're still trying to find a way to do that.
Right.
And that is one of the topics for today.
Right. And I mean, to your larger question of a larger plan, I mean, we've been talking to Alpine County quite a bit in the last 6 to 12 months, 2 years here on this topic. And I think, I'd welcome a conversation on having another master planning conversation if that was appropriate to do it. I mean, I think as Bob said, even just getting the minute, we tried to get funding for 3 full-time people 2-3 years ago, and it did not pass. And so we've been trying even to get a lower level of service to see if the community could pass it, and that didn't pass. So we're just trying to get any level of service at this point. So having a master plan for an ambulance that we used to have that would cost us a lot, like way more money than we've been able to even get approved to this point, I think has been not the priority. It's to even have some response at all. Because as of September 4th, there won't potentially be a service coming out of Kirkwood at all.
Right. There are
That's
the
not
immediate
focused.
needs, and then there's also long-term planning, but long-term planning needs studies and assessments.
And our short-term need is that we don't have a fire chief as of September 3rd. So that's what I think we've been focused on, like you said, in the short-term needs, just to make sure that we maintain a level of service, a basic level of service in Kirkwood. So that would be my kind of assessment of things at this point, at least in my tenure with the district in the last 5 years. But I appreciate your comments. I'm personally welcome to entertain this more, but I think my personal focus with the board and the TAC has been to find a way to maintain something here so that you're not waiting for Amador or Alpine County to come service us for all calls.
And I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. It just seems a little odd that a whole community, that emergency medical services isn't kind of already, that it's an afterthought in our community. So anyway.
All right. Well, I appreciate your comment. And please hang on for the rest of the conversations on the topic for fire services. And I will say to your point that we do have historically thought of fire and EMS as two topics. Like you can have fire or EMS or both. But fire, we've been trying to say, can we have EMTs and having some level of care that's higher? We used to have an ambulance that then can service it because of the cost. It's the kind of 2 different levels of care in some ways. So I wouldn't say it's an afterthought. I just think it's escalations essentially, because that sound good. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and we appreciate Michelle's concern as well as comments.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you, Michelle, for being persistent on the issue and raising it in a way that's thoughtful.
Well, I think that if we figure out what the community needs, and then we can maybe figure out how to fund it, because everybody has an interest in making sure that we have a safe community and that people aren't being put at unnecessary risk, especially, for example, like overnight guests of Vail Resorts. I would think that Vail would have an interest in making sure that, their overnight guests, that there is emergency service available for them, for example.
You're welcome to ask them if they do.
Yeah, and you're right to focus on that. It's the large property owners are the number one reason that the reset effort Doug just described failed in the assessment vote. So,
okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments, Michelle. I don't see anyone else in the room or any more hands up. So we'll move on to agenda number 6, which is written comments from the public. And I believe we have Michelle's email in here from the last time, which I mentioned verbally in here. So note that. We'll move on to agenda item number 7. This is adoption of the consent calendar. 7A is the only one we will consider in this vote. Is there a motion to accept and adopt that item at 7A?
Yeah, Darbrook, so moved.
Bob, I second it.
Everyone in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. We'll move on to agenda number 8, consent items brought forward for separate discussion. We'll start with what was in 7B, approve current consent for claims. John, what
Oh,
were your
yeah, I
questions?
just had a couple questions on
Sure.
AP. Let me wake up my MacBook.
I have one also, so.
Okay, you go first if you've got it.
There's a line item for Meadowstone EV charger.
That was one of mine.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't
You
sure
can
what that
have it,
meant.
though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what is that?
So we had an opportunity to work with the Meadowstone HOA and install an EV charger for the unit that we own in the building. Honestly, it was a minimal cost to install the charger, which can be locked off, so no one can obviously use it independently. And so it's again, a great benefit for the district.
So the money was applied to the charger.
Yeah.
And not to the individual listed.
Correct.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that
Okay.
was in conjunction with the project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'll just use this as an opportunity to note that as an HOA, I live in Meadowstone, so I will, but like, we had an initiative in our HOA to do installation of EV charging as an optional group effort in our building. And so we have 33 units in our HOA, and I think about a dozen and change ended up going forward with it. And so it's a good opportunity. And we've also heard from other HOAs that are interested in this as well. So hopefully, this is, and we get questions at the district about what we're doing for EV charging and all these sorts of things. And so we thought it was a good idea to have the HOA or have the KMPD participate in this as an effort of that. And the residents will hopefully take great advantage of it.
Doug, I'm sorry, is the $4,000 item, is that connected to what these dozen or so are doing? You said there are but a dozen.
There's a group cost, right, to run cabling to every spot, and then there's the individual spots costs as well. And so everyone in the HOA chipped in for the collective costs for engineering and things like that.
And so will this single charger be accessible to the?
No, it's to that part, it's to our individual KMPD owned unit. Every owner of the HOA has its own parking spot in the garage. This is a EV charger that is dedicated to our tenant.
Okay, to one tenant.
Well,
Rick said something about it being closed off, so
like each of the chargers have, in an HOA setting, you can set the chargers so that you have to have a special key card to be able to use it. So someone can't just drive into the garage and charge. So it's locked off to our tenant.
okay,
Only our tenant can use it.
thank you.
The other question I have was on page 19 is just to verify what the IRS payments were. Those quarterly estimates or.
These are our per pay period taxes of employees. Dependents.
Employees, it's okay.
And you'll continue to see these. They're not every pay period.
Okay, and then the other item was on page 27. Just on the shut-offs. We haven't beat that dead horse for a while, so I thought we were overdue. It had one property listed on the shut-off list.
Yes.
So what's the situation there?
It's currently shut off for non-payment. This account will continue to accrue penalties and base rates and meter charges per the policy. We're not at the point yet where we need to start discussing a lien on the property or anything for non-payment, but that's an option that DD has should it become necessary.
Okay.
And John, I'll just say, I'm glad you brought it up. I asked staff about this one myself, and because, whenever we shut someone off, it's a concern as well. And my understanding from talking to staff is that we followed all the necessary procedures and guidelines. We have been in touch with the owner. This isn't like someone's going to show up surprised. The owner has acknowledged this and wants this.
Good. Thanks. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions on what was the 2 items brought forward? If not, accept the motion to approve those.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes. We'll now move on to agenda number 9, items for board action. We'll start with agenda number 9A, equipment and facility noise complaints. Brandy, I think you'll lead us on this on page 28. The board packet.
Yes, sir. So we have two separate noise complaints here in the same agenda item. The first one is from the wastewater treatment plant, and the second being transformer near Sun Meadows. So starting with each of these separately, wastewater treatment plant. We've talked about this before at the EOP committee. We've also talked about it in various HOA meetings. So this is just a report to the board on what staff has done so far and what we found. If we can, Rick, go to start the slideshow here. I did do some photos, thank you, of what these fans are meant to accomplish. So the fans were installed as part of the recent wastewater treatment plant rehab and repair project. And they replaced similar fans that were broken for some amount of time. So the replacement is not a new installation, but it did change the sound levels because the previous ones were broken and not working. So what these fans are, and you can see kind of in the top center of this picture, they exhaust air out of the basin room in the wastewater treatment plant. That builds up gases just due to the wastewater treatment process. Do you mind if I click through?
It's fine.
Okay, I'll click through here.
The fans are up there in that window area.
The fans are mounted on the exterior of the
Oh,
building,
I
but go
see.
through those louvers that you'll see here. So all of these basins are in the same room. There are 3 fans in this room. All of these basins are filled with wastewater in different areas of the process at all times, 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And this is the other room. So this is what's called the anoxic zone. And you can see there's a louver up in the corner of this picture too. This is the 4th fan. So this is just trying to show what these fans attempt to accomplish. And they attempt to take all of the gases that build up in the building and take them outside so we don't have problems with equipment damage due to corrosive gases. We don't have health and safety issues for our employees. In response to the concern, staff has spent a considerable amount of time trying to understand the level of concerns, understand where the issues are being noted. So this is just a map of the valley with the locations that staff went out and did sound level measurements. All of the concerns that have come in from the East Meadows area. So most of our recordings were from that side. We did just take some out in front to try to gauge ambient noise level in the valley. And what we found is the location level or measured 10 here is directly behind the wastewater treatment plant at our property line. And that is the only location where staff internally with our available equipment was able to get anything over ambient sound levels. Now I will say that you can perceive the sound when you walk on the other side of the meadow. The sound is able to be heard. So what we tried to do internally after doing some measurements was an internal project, try to see if we could install some sound blankets to reduce the sound. And we did that just as an internal in-house project. We, at the location marked 10 here, before the sound blanket installation, we were reading 33.7 decibels. After, we were reading 31.6. So we saw about a 6% reduction in sound levels. We have heard feedback that is not noticeable, the reduction in sound.
Sorry to interrupt, Randy. I'm getting a text message from someone trying to dial in who sees only Rick's screen. I don't know if that's easy to fix.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm on screen two right now. Here we go.
Is that okay?
Should be able to see it now.
Hopefully we'll get a comment if that doesn't fix the problem. So in addition to these, we did take a look at the Alpine County noise ordinance and checked our levels against the county ordinance levels. We are a public utility and zoned as such, and that is exempt from the Alpine County noise ordinance. But we understand that that does not mean that it's silent. So commercial requirements in Alpine County are at property line, no more than 75 decibels. And so, you know, after the noise complaints came in and after the sound blanket installations were put up, we're about 42% of what a commercial establishment would be held to in Alpine County. There is a bit of difficulty quantifying what would be ideal here, because silence is not achievable. But certainly there could be some other actions taken that may improve the sound levels. We do not have any other in-house options at this time. So the last thing I wanted to show here in the pictures is one of the comments that came in mentioned light as well as noise from the wastewater treatment plant. So I went over on Wednesday and just took a look at what we're talking about here. What light are we seeing? And if you can look here, you can see what appears to be lights on top of the wastewater treatment plant building. Now, this is from the trail in the East Meadows. But these lights are not at the wastewater treatment plant. This is a picture of the back of the wastewater treatment plant and the sound blankets that were installed to attempt to mitigate the sound. There's no exterior lighting back here. So the lights that are being seen are actually the Vail shop lot over there with the multiple lights on and around it. They're very bright, but they're not, you know, in our purview. So that was just I wanted to make sure we took a look at that too. So with all of that being said, staff recommends that if we would like to pursue additional action here and attempt to mitigate the sound further, that we contact an outside party to do this because we do not have any other in-house plans or ability to execute anything here. Should I stop there or do we want to talk about Sun Meadows too?
Let's do it all together. It's that way we can get out a staff report, then public comments, and then board discussion.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So the second noise concern is from the Sun Meadows transformer. And this one is located near the corner of the building between Sun Meadows and Base Camp. All transformers hum, and this one does produce a sound. Looking back at our notes, we had a similar complaint in 2015, and I was able to find the recordings of sound that we did at that time. We repeated those sound level readings, and found no increase in sound level over the last 11 years. We also looked at oil level in the transformer because transformers are machines that don't have moving parts, but they do have oil, and that can, if they're low on oil, it can affect the sound. The oil level is normal. So on this one, staff's recommendation is during our next oil testing cycle to test the oil in this transformer. Typically, we do that every 2 years. And see if the oil test results indicate any issues inside the transformer that may require maintenance or replacement. And then for both issues, whenever we replace equipment, we should look at the quietest options available at a cost-effective level to reduce sounds from our equipment and facilities. And with that, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the staff perspective on this. There are a number of written comments that were included in the board packet, so I just want to make sure that those are acknowledged by the board and that you had a chance to read them since they're in the packet. Thank you for the community members who didn't spend the time to write them and send them in. What we'll do now is we'll open it up to any other further comments that, for anyone in the room or online who wants to comment on this, and then we'll move to board discussion after we've heard public comment. All right, I see a hand up online, Rick. Unmute. All right, Tina, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name's Tina Coleman. I've met most of you before. Thank you for your service, and thank you for taking the time to look at this, Brandy and Rick. I won't repeat what I've already communicated. I just wanted to acknowledge that this sound, when I spend probably half the time in the valley in the summer in the off season and 2/3 in the winter, and it's not like a pervasive situation when you are behind it, and also when you're far enough in the meadow, like outside of it. It's definitely stunningly loud if you're just walking through the meadow, and when the ambient sounds are, as I mentioned in my letter, like when the working sounds of the valley are quiet, so early morning walk or just a morning walk or evening, or just for my personal, even having dinner on the porch, it's a pretty loud background humming. I mean, in the fall, even if you're up on the Red Cliffs, hiking up that way, you can hear it really clearly. No expectation of silence, whatever. It's just, it would be great to have some reprieve from this, even if it were just like, I know they need to keep running and I'm not an engineer by any means, but if there could be a few hours even that we could get reprieve from it with the sensors or something like that, that would be great. Again, I don't know what options, but if I can be helpful in any way, I'd be happy to be. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. Brandy, do you want to comment on the duration of, like I think Tina mentioned here, and was in some of the letters of like cycling on and off. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit more in terms of like the engineering and microbes and your philosophy or the perspective on how that works?
Sure. And so I'm speaking from a wastewater treatment plant perspective here. I am not qualified to design that HVAC system, but what would be needed to cycle on and off is some way to measure the air quality inside the building. And several of the board members were able to go over today and look at these basin rooms. But there would need to be sensors placed strategically to capture the gas level coming off of the basins and make sure that it's going out of the building. To cycle it on and off, we would also need additional equipment. We would need VFDs, which are expensive and require additional maintenance. VFD, variable frequency drives. And all of those things could be assessed, but I don't know the outcome of those. I don't know if that is the most effective way to try to reduce sound, or if it's something like exhaust manifolds, something. I just don't know.
Right. Next we have Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hi, this is Matt Petrie. I submitted the request regarding the transformer near Sun Meadows. And Brandy, thanks for looking back to see the prior complaint or request from 2815 and comparing the sound levels. I'm curious for this transformer, how it compares to others in the valley. I can see in the document, the recommendation is, and you had mentioned that when equipment is replaced, that sound level should be a consideration. So I'd be curious to know, is this transformer anywhere near the end of its useful life? And I guess that's it. Oh, and I guess third question would be, are there any inexpensive ways that might be able to install, a sound baffle or blankets or something that might help minimize the sound. It's particularly noticeable, as I noted in my email, when we're up in the times when we have windows open and trying to sleep and you just hear this constant buzzing or humming. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. So we did do a comparison to other similarly sized transformers in the valley. This one in the range of quietest to loudest is on the louder side, but it is not the loudest transformer we have in the valley. Transformer buzzing noise, like I said, it's all transformers buzz, but it depends on the size of the unit, manufacturer, and not typically age itself, but whether or not there are any internal components that are causing problems. Is there arcing inside the unit and that sort of thing, which we would be able to tell with additional oil testing. As far as easy mitigation measures, there aren't easy mitigation measures because the transformer has to be accessible and it has to be open so that it can dissipate heat. So we can't install any sort of enclosure or blanket around it because then the transformer is going to overheat and short out. So the options to make it quieter aren't easy. It would be something like we would look at a replacement of the transformer. This one is not on our upcoming, we know within 5 years, this one's going to be replaced. But that list changes from time to time based on whether we see anything on oil testing. So that if we see any indication that we would need to move that up in the capital projects, we would do that.
I'll also note, I have a transformer outside my HOA and I hear it bouncing off of Sun Meadows and Meadowstone, like it's right in between our buildings. And I think so, especially in the condo areas, I don't know where they're located exactly in more of the single family homes or the duplexes, but
Right at the end of my driveway.
right. But we have transformers all over the valley, and certainly,
We have 100, almost 100.
yeah. So they are everywhere, and depending on where they were installed relative to your house, like this is. I'm sympathetic to this because I hear the same thing, but I don't know. I don't think we have any easy solutions, but we can consider what we consider.
Have there been multiple complaints on the Sun Meadow? That's the first that.
This is the second. The first that I have record of is 2015.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant now. Now there's one complaint.
Let's go to Bruce next. Bruce, can you unmute yourself?
I noticed Lisa's there, maybe.
Ah, there we go.
There is Bruce, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead,
All right,
Bruce.
cool. All right, so yeah, Brandy, thank you for that report. A couple of thoughts, and you and I chatted about it, and I appreciate that the staff definitely wanted a chance to address this, which you did, and obviously the sound blankets are of limited effectiveness. So hopefully we can come up with another solution. I tried to enumerate a bunch of different options. I did look up the model, the fan that you implemented, and kudos, it is cost effective. It's the most cost effective of the line, but unfortunately, as a result of that, it has high RPM, which that type of fan ends up with a very high tip speed, and that's what makes that whining sound that we all hear. So, I think unless you go with a variable frequency drive, which certainly seems possible, I understand that it's not what that fan is, and that would be an additional expense. That's a very easy way to, not easy, a way. I think there's sound dampening that could be put in that would lessen it. You know, we talked about that when I was over there of, you know, different kind of linings and things, because unfortunately that sound blanket, it just bounces back and forth off of that hard wall, which is what we're all experiencing. Obviously, centrifugal fans would be much quieter. That would require a lot more reducting. You know, I think as far as the measurement of noxious gas, I mean, as an engineer, it's like, well, how do you even know it's okay now? If that were a requirement to put in variable frequency drives or, you know, intermittent kinds of things, I don't understand why it's not a requirement now to ensure that everyone is safe and OSHA compliant. So, you know, I think the board should discuss that and understand that piece of it. As far as, you know, the noise level, yes, I agree with you. It is within statutory limits. However, that same statute states that if things are a nuisance, considered a nuisance, that does not apply. So, and I don't think this is really as much about statutes. I appreciate you're trying to have an engineered solution, but the reality is that many people hear it. I hear it. We all hear it, and there are other options that are much quieter. Whether it's centrifugal, variable speed fans that don't get that high tip speed that you're experiencing. You know, some sound deadening in the ductwork itself. You know, and I appreciate you said that we should reevaluate this when we're at the end of the remaining useful life of that particular fan, which is 15 to 20 years, which frankly, it goes beyond my remaining useful life. So we'd like to see if we can address something sooner. So I think that there certainly are solutions. They won't be free. You know, I know that you weren't considering sound really when you installed this, because this is the highest dB fan of that line. I appreciate you've got budget constraints, but you know, I think it wasn't considered now, and so, you know, would it even be considered in the future? Anyway, I think those are my main comments of, yes, it can be made much quieter than it is through different fans, variable drives, centrifugal drives, but they all will cost additional money. And that's why, Brandy, when I came over, I was like, geez, don't even put the sound blankets in, because let's not spend more money that won't deliver the result that we're looking for. And unfortunately, now we spent that additional money. I realize it wasn't much, but it's just another, you know, tax for the PUD. So I think there's a solution. I would like the board to, you know, get that, consider putting that in the next budget, and, you know, hiring an engineer. And I don't want to spend a lot of money on an engineer, because the solutions are relatively straightforward. You know, it's just spending money on a variable drive or centrifugal drive, which requires some reducting. I do think you should look at measuring the noxious gas levels anyway, which I'm surprised OSHA doesn't require. So anyway, I think those are my main points. Lisa, did I miss anything that was in the letter? Sorry, I'm not in front of my computer, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, thanks. Brandy, maybe it's just Bruce Brett mentioned a couple of times the noxious gas readings and sensors and requirements for that.
We would need to, so right now the fans operate continuously and cycle the air out of the building at a regular time frame. So if we are going to reduce that or change that, that is when, in my opinion, we would need to get some way to measure that so that we know, because, you know, there's a really easy way to fix this, and it's turn off the fan. But then we know what happens when when we have that sort of situation. So having some way for a solution to be engineered that did it at the right time.
But when we went through the design, the engineers went through the design process did not require us to install sensors at that time because the design of the fan continuously running was sufficient to meet whatever requirements. That's the design decision from the engineer that we hired.
Exactly. And if we change that design
Right.
decision, that's where we're at now.
Right. Okay.
And those particular fans are not variable. You said we would need to buy VFD. Is it just a controller, or is it actually a new fan, or is it just a new fan motor? I'm trying to understand kind of the level of complexity to go with variable speed drives.
That is something that we would need to have assessed.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the comments, Bruce. We appreciate it.
All right.
And
Okay.
don't
Yes.
see any other
Thank you. And
hands
just
up
one
here.
other comment.
Oh.
I know that engineers way over engineer things, as all of our requirements are. So there may still be some margin within the engineered design that would allow this cycling, which is the most cost effective that you were talking about. So that may be a consideration as well. Thank you.
Could I ask Bruce one question before we let him go? Of the several options or that you bullet out, is there a particular preference or recommendation you have, or are you not in a position to?
Well, I'm not an acoustic, I'm just a mechanical engineer. So, I mean, I understand the basic principles. I have to think variable speed drive, it's that high velocity tip speed of that centrifugal fan is what's driving that noise. If you could slow that down. But the cheapest thing you may be able to do is just better baffling in the, within the fan enclosure. Because what's happening is this noise is coming out and it radiates in all directions. It doesn't go straight out like light. It just goes in all directions and it bounces off that wall and it just goes all around those nice blankets you put in. And that was kind of, sound and light are completely different in how they transfer. And so if you think of sound like light, you say put a blanket in front of it, but sound bounces everywhere. And that's what we're seeing. So you have to, at the source, try to dampen it. So it's like right in by those fans, you have to dampen that sound. So that may be the most cost effective, other than just, reducing the actual fan tip speed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment now and move on to board discussion. All right, board discussion. Hi, Bob.
So I went for a walk this morning. Did all the way across Red Cliffs where I was. All right, everybody perceives sound differently. So I'm just telling you what I experienced. The only thing I could hear from Red Cliffs was occasional noise from 88. But I didn't hear, I couldn't perceive that. So then I came down and started at the end of the the northern end of the walkway and kept walking until I reached the point where I could perceive the sound distinctly. I marked that spot. Then I kept walking until I found the noise bothersome. And then I walked to your house, which was well past the point where it was bothersome, and then kept on walking toward my house until, again, it was minimal, and then I couldn't quite tell. The reason why I bring that up is I think we have a customer issue I'd like to solve. It's not a legal compliance issue. That's a problem I would like to see us address. But I think the way to do that is to know what success looks like in advance. So one suggestion I would have for people where the noise is bothering, where on the pathway is it first start to bother you? Where on that path? Because the noise decreases as you walk, away from your house in either direction. Where is that noise? If we achieve that level, we could call it success. Because if we knew that, we at least could measure it there and we'd know in advance. I think the worst case for me would be investing the time and energy doing it and then not knowing what the goal was to try to achieve. So I suggest that we have some way of establishing a goal. That's one way to do that. I think the wastewater treatment plant I haven't been in there as long as Peter, but I've been there for quite a while. it used to be a danger, I felt, to the employees working in there. And so what we have right now is one that works well, but it runs continuously. So I don't, maybe, I don't, a different fan might work great. I don't know, but the idea of having it off or on or something like that, I would discourage us from considering that, because when it turns on, you're going to really notice it. You've got that problem, and also that puts the plant operations at risk. And if it went on and off every half hour, that I'm just making that up, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be very great either. So I would like to see us explore what things could be done, either with baffling inside the building, outside, different fans, whatever, and have some target that we're shooting for.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what Bob had to say. First of all, that we should address it, even though it's not a legal requirement. I can hear it. I did a morning run loop through the meadow, and it's unpleasantly loud in certain areas, both on the wastewater treatment side and then across where your homes are. So I think we ought to address it. I do think there is a noise abatement side of it, which is baffling, things like that. I think there's a fan design part of it, which that's where I probably differ with you, is there's a significant difference from one type of fan to another.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with that.
I mean,
We agree.
Oh, okay, we do.
Yeah, no, we
Good.
totally
That's even
agree.
better.
It's just the idea of having a fan cycle on and off.
Yeah, I would say switching on and off isn't very effective, but variable speed with a more effective fan can have a dramatic effect. So variable speed versus on and off, meaning it goes to 15%, 20, things like that. So I know what I'd like to see is us to make an investment in getting an engineer to take a look at this. I'd like your suggestion to set a target and have the machinery to be able to measure that target.
In decibels?
I think our decibels we can only register 30 dB.
We use different equipment.
Yeah,
to
I was
measure.
gonna say,
Yeah.
where I was, just to jump in a little bit, I agree with this, and I think my biggest concern is the objectiveness of this. Like, I appreciate there are comments. The comments are it's too loud, and I don't know, I share the concern. I want to solve this, but I don't know what success will look like for the district. Because the worst case is we're gonna spend $10 million on this, and then everyone's still upset. And so I would like to see is actually not just an engineering study of what the options are, but something on all of our industrial noise potentially. We have transformers, we have fans, we have other things. But knowing what our baseline is and what we're trying to get to is.
I'd like to solve the specific cases that we're getting complaints on.
We're getting complaints about transformers and
Let me finish.
the fans.
Let me finish. Rather than make it a generalized, let's measure all the noise levels in the valley. But I would like to invest in an engineering study to come up with solutions for either noise abatement. I think part of that could be on fan design, sensors, things like that. Could be on other ways to direct the noise. And the best we can do to set a measurable milestone or goal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. The only thing I would differ on is that we're getting complaints about industrial noise. It's usually not, we are an industrial complex, so we produce noise. Let's understand what our noises are.
What are you proposing in addition to addressing
Just
the
like
wastewater treatment plant and
transformers? I mean, I don't know.
You want to spend more money just looking for noise problems?
No, just monitoring,
to
measuring.
understand, like, what is our baseline of all these things? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, like, we have noise complaints. Why would we focus only on wastewater treatment plant? We're getting noise complaints about industrial noise, which makes
What's bothering customers?
we have a complaint from a customer who's also bothered by the transformers.
Yeah, so those two items, yeah.
I mean, if there's other industrial noises that are worth measuring, I'm asking if there's other things that we should be measuring. And if not, like the propane system, I don't know, there are ambient noises that from the propane system that we should be measuring. I don't know.
Probably not propane. We have had historical complaints about the powerhouse when it is
Sure.
operating.
Chair two,
I'm sorry.
chair two, although no one would call because it doesn't affect their homes, but hikers and are curious, why is the chair two transformer so noisy and buzzy? We've all heard that.
Yeah, like the
So
powerhouse, like
there's
you're talking
some
about
larger
that, so
transformers, and this is not the only larger commercial transformer that has a level of sound that you can hear from some ways away, you know? I would think the powerhouse would be a target for that if we wanted to do that. We haven't had complaints in a long time because we don't run it very much.
I would welcome the staff. I mean, it's you've proposed, and I would welcome that we do go forward with an engineering report quickly, making trade-offs between really focusing on problem number one, which is the treatment plant. I agree. But you know, if the engineer's here and it's cost effective and doesn't slow us down to look more broadly, why not? I will add my just anecdotal observation that where I live, I almost never hear it, but all it took for me was one evening early summer to walk from Bruce Lawler's house, to my house, and it is absolutely an issue. I think we're all saying the same thing, so forgive me for piling on, but it's absolutely an issue that a customer service issue, albeit and that we ought to solve. So when we talk about engineering report, that can sound like kicking the can down the road. What sort of time frame might it be? And anything we do would probably have to fit into budget cycle, of course. This isn't going to slide in, I imagine, as an extra expense. What kind of timing might this be? Either that's for you, Brandy, or any of you on the board.
Well, first of all, we probably have to put out an RFP for the engineer report. Once we solicit those, bring those back to the board for consideration, what the cost might be, and then we move forward there. But we can certainly bring back a timetable when we get that engineer's report back to the board for consideration.
I guess my point on the sound is our staff can't measure decibel levels close enough to be able to understand how well we're doing on this. And if we want to be objective on it, we're going to have as a part of this RFP, include, I would assume, more sensitive equipment to measure noises. If we want to be objective on where we are and where we got to. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree. I do not know the capabilities of professional sound level equipment, but certainly 30 decibels being the lower limit is not enough to be productive here.
Right.
So if we include as part of the RFP for the engineering study, options and engineers' estimates on possible solutions, that would give us a better idea of timing. Because if it's a relatively inexpensive fix, then that could be possibly handled sooner. But at this point, I don't think we know until we go out for the first step of trying to find somebody to do the study.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to me to look at the model of fan we have and what alternatives there are and what the price points are on that, because, while an engineered approach is really nice, the delay in the cost of the engineering approach, if we do a more efficient fan, would reduce the noise substantially. I consider that as well, right?
So you're thinking instead of an RFP for an engineering design, an RFP for like an HVAC company who would give us a quieter alternative to the existing solution?
It's funny. My experience is very limited in this. It's in designing kind of high-end muscle cars and stuff. And I can tell you the difference between
here, the better.
The difference between putting a brushed single speed fan in a muscle car and a PWM variable speed brushless fan is unbelievable. It's night and day different. I mean, it's like you don't hear one, the other one is overbearing. If there's any translation, these are all made by SPAL, which is an industrial fan manufacturer. So I think the technology would be similar. So I don't want to go out on a limb and say I know how to design the system. But if I looked and I said, I had this fan and plug replaceable, I could put in another fan and I knew the price point on it, it might make me consider, why not swap the fan and see how it goes?
John, does that suggest maybe instead of a engineering report, which might be quite big and broad, there's something more targeted and quicker that we do first?
It'd be something that I'd like to look at. I'd probably even look up if I knew the fan model, I'd probably look it up just myself to see
Do we have in-house?
And if I could just, I do not feel that we have in-house ability to make that decision.
What about our contractor from who built
We could certainly reach out to them and see if they were willing to do another contract with us to do
or just answer a few
unlimited
questions?
scope. You know, agreement with us to look at reducing the fan sound replacement of a similar functionality, but with a quieter model. We could look at that, but we can't. I believe we've done everything we can do in-house, and we will need to find a consultant, an engineering firm, someone who can do this, who can, we don't want to put the improvements we've made at the wastewater treatment plant at risk because.
Yeah, there's another item that hasn't come up is we need that equipment to be serviced and be on warranty and things like that. So that's another area we need to check into.
I agree.
I think just my takeaway is that I've heard staff say this a couple times now, that they do not want to be responsible for doing it. They want external help. Correct?
Yes, I think
So-
we've done everything we can in-house.
I don't think any of the options that have been outlined by any of our customers or anything like those can be things that we would like. I think what I'm hearing from staff is that they're asking us if we are okay asking to get professional contract to help evaluate those options and maybe others. That would be, I think, the proposal that I would want to put on the table for us is give staff the guidance to go out and hire someone to do an evaluation. We're not making a decision on what we would do at this point. We're directing staff to go out and get a contract, put out an RFP to get someone to give us the options. And, again, I want to be objective about this as much as we can. Here's where we are and here's what we got to.
Yeah.
And here are the options that could get us 10 decibels. This is the option, whatever it is. And those will be giving us those options. And then we make the decision as to how and when do we pay for that? Because that's, like you said, this isn't a budgeted expense right now. This will have to go, maybe we have to do another rate study for wastewater.
I highly doubt that, but
I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know, but
What
staff is
I'd
asking
like
to go
to-
external to do something. I would like to.
yeah, I'd like to address the problem. I want it to be a proper solution. If we need outside expertise, I'm fine with that. I just don't want to turn it into boiling Lake Tahoe.
I don't think it has to be, right?
We could attempt to write the RFP in ways that would give people flexibility. So we could try to see if the fan manufacturer was interested in taking a look at this and, giving us some solutions that would work. I don't know what success we'll have there, but we could try to write it in such a way that we would not just get somebody who wants to do $100,000 engineering study.
Yeah,
I think I share your concern, John. I think I don't see it as a requirement that says if we can write this to be very focused and very narrow and hopefully turn this around relatively quickly, and hopefully relatively inexpensively, but to figure out how much we need to spend to really fix it. That would be my hope.
Yeah, so staff's just looking for board approval to move forward on an unfunded, unbudgeted item to explore the possibilities of trying to reduce the sound. So
Right. And I will say the thing I want to add in there is that if we are bringing out some professional equipment to measure sounds for very focused, I know for a lot of people on wastewater treatment plant and the sounds over there, I would encourage us while we have equipment here and we have complaints about transformers and we've had complaints on the powerhouse, while they're here, ask what it would cost to measure those. So at least we have a baseline, and then it was helpful that you were able to go back in time to see that first transformer complaint, that there's been no noticeable difference. Let's think about that. That's all I was trying to say, John, is not trying to expand the scope. Is just while we have equipment here, if we're going to be objective about it and measure it, then let's measure other things.
Okay, it's funny, I had a project at a nonprofit where there was asbestos in the ceiling that had to be removed.
Mhm.
When it was removed, of course, that made the facility kind of unusable from a sound perspective. Because it was all the cottage cheese sort of sound deadening. And we went out to get a study done, and the study cost was exorbitant. We went to an engineer, said, hey, design something that'll reduce the noise in here. And we were able to do it and avoid the cost of the study. So that's why I'm kind of in this do I want to have a 6 month or a year delay and spend 50,000 or 100,000, or do I want to try something early? There's kind of some investigation that I'd like to have us apply some,
Yeah, make it a
decision-making
two-step-
process to,
Two-step process.
you know what I mean?
I don't disagree with you, but I think you have said that you do not want this to be on, like, what I hear you say, John, is that you
I am
don't.
not qualified to do anything more on this. And I don't have anybody on my staff who is, so. We've done what we can in-house. I acknowledge that the concern remains and we have not been able to reduce it to a level where that concern goes away. So we need external help here, from somebody who is able to look at our existing equipment and say, I'm able to design this in the state of California and I can assure you, you're not going to mess up your equipment.
Mhm.
Like that's what we need, that sort of assurance here, in my opinion.
Sorry, but have we already tapped our contractors on this $7 million project to get their best understanding on this problem?
We have not.
Well, I mean, maybe this is similar to what I'm hearing from John, which is by all means, let's consider an RFP, but let's please tap those that with a set of structured questions that maybe we are qualified in-house to pose, just to get their advice and recommendations, maybe off the clock and then necessary on the clock. But that's it.
All right, I want to close discussion on this and see if there is any resolution or motion that would.
I think staff's requesting flexibility, budget flexibility to explore options using outside resources. That's what I think we're being asked to
I
do.
know that we approve the staff request.
And we could absolutely bring anything back received to the board
Right.
and to the EOP for.
At this point, we're not really spending any money at this point. We're just authorizing you to put out an RFP. We will have to then consider those RFP options and then authorize that. And then obviously, if there's an actual expense, we'll go through that.
Well, do we need an RFP to go back to the contractor and the fan manufacturer? I mean,
No,
I've
Can we
already
do that?
spoken to the fan manufacturer
Yeah,
to the
let's do
extent
that.
of my ability and didn't get anywhere.
Didn't get
I would be happy to reach out to the contractor, but
that'd be good.
We will give you the staff the flexibility to look at.
I
additional
don't think we're
resources.
getting anywhere.
You're not optimistic.
No, I've spent a fair amount of personal time working on this and I'm at the limit of my ability here. So
All right, is there a motion? I think I heard a motion. What was your motion?
my motion would be that we grant staff request, that we approve time spent on this project, do it to your discretion, and consider the input that we've just provided.
Second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, indicate with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No one opposed, it passes. All right, thank you everyone for the feedback and the conversation today. Let's move on to agenda item 9B, manganese waiver. Randy.
Rears its head again.
all right, manganese waiver. So the board will remember and the community will remember last year, we had a lot of community outreach, a lot of discussion on the manganese levels that we were seeing out of 4 or 5, and we were being told by the state that we needed to install treatment for that. We were granted a 9-year waiver, conditional approval, for well 4 or 5 for the manganese secondary MCL, which is an aesthetic MCL on September 9th, 2025. And in July of this year, we were notified by the state that they had revised the notification and response levels for manganese in June. And that as a result of this, and this is written here in the staff report, this cancels the applicability of manganese secondary waivers. So what that means is still being determined. What it means right now is that we're in very close conversation with the state. They have asked us to resume quarterly monitoring for wells 4 or 5. They've asked us to start quarterly monitoring for well 3 because of a single level detection in June. And that they are still working through the implications of this. For us operationally, it does not have any immediate impact. as part of the manganese waiver process, we did an engineering study which identified some possible sampling procedure updates that we could make to ensure that we're getting a true reading of the groundwater levels. All this means for us right this moment is that we implement those and we continue to do sampling through the new procedure for the next 4 quarters. If the next 4 quarters using the revised sampling procedures show that we have levels that are elevated over the new notification level, then what that will mean is we'll be required to follow the new rules. Those rules are, if we have 4 quarters that are above the new notification level, we are required to, as staff, notify you as the board. We are required to notify the community, and the state may require us to do something else. There is a lot of gray area right now. So what that might look like or what the timeline on that is, we do not know at this point. If we have to put in green sand filters, what that looked like, it was in the original water wastewater study. It was, $1.5 million project. It increased rates by something like 2% or something like that. So there is a chance that this time next year, when we are adopting our annual rates, we may need to consider going back to the previously adopted rate study. But we won't know that until 4 quarters go by. And so this is just a notice to the board that we did get this information from the state. They have revised their notification and response levels for manganese. Interestingly, all of the information about the effects of that being really a concern for formula-fed infants, all of that is the same. There's no change. There's no broader health implication that was brought up as part of this new revision by the state. And I'm sorry, I don't have more clarification from there, but that's where we are right now. Any questions on that?
Let's go to public comments first. I don't see anyone in the room or any hands online. So no public comments. So for discussion, I'll be at your
I
hand.
describe this as start worrying, bad news to follow.
Okay.
I hope not, but certainly we need to be prepared.
My question is, are they applying this just to us, or this is a statewide?
Statewide update.
Okay.
We have a new regulator at the state who's in charge of our water facility. And in my conversations with him, he said there are about 20 statewide waivers in place. So this is all of those. And how this is going to be applied to those is still being determined.
So
Thank you.
A question about when we did receive tests that were higher than the limit, do you have any concerns over improvements we could do to testing to make sure that they're accurate and might preclude a false reading?
Yes, I do. So that's kind of in 2 parts. One is our engineering study identified the need to do a longer well run because these are all groundwater samples. So the wells should be online and producing water for a certain amount of time before we take the sample. That has not been done in the past. It was not done on the June sample that was flagged by the state. So that is something we can certainly do and will do going forward. The other thing we're going to do going forward is we're going to duplicate samples and send them to 2 different labs because we have had a couple of issues with our current contract lab, which we've had results that have been sampled again and have given us different results. And for this one, especially since we're now in this new regulation or updated regulation, we're going to be very sure in this next quarter that we're doing everything we can to make sure our results are what is actually in the groundwater.
Awesome.
And then if we have a problem, then we'll look at how to fix that.
So,
Thank you.
so to summarize, we spent money on this report, the manganese work, a year or so ago. We found out some sampling techniques. The hope is that all these techniques and the changes and the duplication of labs will just resolve this entirely. Like this will just be a non-issue. If it doesn't, it's still unclear as to what that means in terms of whether we have to install an expensive $1.5 million. I'm sure in a couple of years from now, it'll be more than that, expense that we will all then have to bear as part of the wastewater rates. Right?
And that's correct. And that possibility, even with the waiver, still existed if we,
Right.
at the end of the waiver.
Exactly. Yes.
So we're,
The 9 years that we thought we had have now been reduced to, we don't know,
yes,
but still,
that's
still,
exactly right.
still persisting is our hope that the testing and sampling would make this whole thing go away. And let's hope for that.
And if
Yeah.
not, then we all want to make sure that we're,
Right.
installing the correct thing. So yes.
Great. So there's no action needed by the board today, is that correct?
No, this is just.
Great.
Not even starting to worry.
I'm not gonna take a motion on worrying, but thank you though. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on to agenda item 9C, the fire chief search. So just as a background on this, we've been talking about this for quite a time. And we last spoke about how we've been doing the CalPERS process to make sure that we have a safety designation. And so staff has been working with our contractor on this to get the job posting. And so Rick, why don't you talk about it from there?
So the district, in partnership with CPS Talent Acquisition and HR Services, initiated recruitment for the fire chief position. To date, the district has received 5 qualified applications for consideration and is prepared to move forward with these interviews. The current recruitment includes the following efforts. The fire chief position remains open and for continuous recruitment with no closing date, meaning that we didn't shut off the closing date last week. We're still actively, seeking applicants for both the 5. And then CPS Consulting is managing the recruitment process as well as doing applicant screening to save us some time. The position is being advertised through local newspapers, governmentjobs.com, and for example, ZipRecruiter. And also the recruitment information has been announced in neighborhood fire departments as well as fire districts, including thanks to Chief Worsham, the Lake Tahoe Regional Fire Chiefs Association, as well as CAL FIRE. Why this is a board agenda item is 1, to just kind of update the board on our activities, but 2, it was suggested that maybe we expand the search and do a higher level search for candidates. So we asked CPS Consulting, what the cost would be to do that for an executive search services. And the proposal came back from their team of basically direct recruitment headhunting with a cost of $30,000. They also suggested that they could provide a $20,000 package that would be a little bit more inclusive, but not quite to the level as the executive services. And then finally, we can continue to do what we're doing now, spending the minimal cost with the CPS contract they have in place. But if we wanted to add additional hours to potentially actively have the acquisition HR team services a little bit more for us, it would be an hourly rate that would be determined later. Again, each of these options would also require additional expenditures for like specialized advertising and other recruitment related expenses, which isn't part of the contracts that they provided or costs that they provided. But honestly, at this time, staff believes the current recruitment and generation, the current recruitment has generated a significant candidate pool to proceed with interviews. And expanding the recruitment efforts at this stage would basically obviously cost more, but I believe that, again, with the given number of qualified applicants plus a few more that I've heard about who are interested, I think we're in a good position to try to move forward. So again, staff's recommendation is to defer the expanded recruitment efforts at this time. And then staff also recommends that the board authorize staff to proceed with the interviews using the current recruitment process once we receive further information from CalPERS, which with our request to include the safety classification within our CalPERS contract now. And as of late, we heard that August 10th, we hopefully will have a response back to CalPERS. Hopefully it's a positive one and doesn't delay this process at all. So that is staff report unless there's any questions.
Just a clarifying question, more to talk about, most of the expense of this is baked into our current agreement, right? So when you
Yes.
talked about the hours they spend, just to clarify for everyone else, like we have a number of hours that we have with this company as an HR that we're already paying for. Thunderstorms are rolling in. As I said, that's paying for the efforts that we're doing now. So it's already, we've already paid for that service. And what Rick is talking about is expanding that further than what we already do as our normal contract. Okay, I don't see any hands up in the room or any online, but any public comment on this or questions? Okay, see any board discussion?
No, if you're getting candidate flow, then and you recommend it's gonna work,
Gonna work.
I'm good with that.
All right. I think that segues well to the next agenda item as well, which, but, or anything else, or is everyone okay with? You need a motion or on this?
No, just only if we were gonna spend $20,000 to $30,000 more, and
But you're good on proceeding. Okay,
thanks for making staff recommendation.
thank you. All right, let's move on to agenda item 9D. This is the KMP Alpine County MOA Temporary Fire Chief Services. So again, what we've been trying to do from the TAC perspective is to work with Alpine County, going back about 6 months here or so with the 218 process, with it not passing. When we went to Alpine County to re-engage in conversations, they had indicated that they wanted our first best solution to be hire ourselves, which was the last agenda item. However, they want to make sure that we're still operating and be a good partner to us, and we appreciate that very much. And as we went through this process and went through the CalPERS designation and went through this hiring process, that did not align quite along perfectly with September change of our fire chief retiring. And so what we've approached Alpine County to do is to engage in an agreement where we could have coverage for 6 months from Alpine County's fire chief and staff to help us continue our operations with some leadership, with some guidance coming from Alpine County, in the thought that that gives us enough of a window to follow through on what we just discussed. Anything else you want to add?
No, but I can certainly highlight what's in the agreement, and
Go for it.
obviously we have the sheriff and the fire chief for Eastern Alpine County in the room, as well as Terry Woodrow, the county supervisor, for more questions.
Supervisor-elect Clint Celia.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So basically what's before you is the second draft of the MOA. We've gone back and forth with the county. And within this draft, there was actually a typo on the section 3 that we've corrected, which is on the next page here, page 60. But basically, this agreement allows the district the time to conduct and recruit for a permanent fire chief, and allows the district to, again, complete the process for modifying the CalPERS retirement contract for that safety category that I mentioned before. Under this proposed MOA, Eastern Alpine County Fire or its assistant chief will be able to provide supervision, leadership, administrative oversight to the Kirkwood Volunteer Fire Department. To help the assistant chief that we have now, Joel Gomez, develop and coordinate and conduct firefighter training, respond to emergency incidents in Kirkwood as appropriate, conduct minimum training of two times a month, as well as provide operational guidance or recommendation to the KMPD board to improve the department readiness and effectiveness. The KMPD will retain ownership and responsibility for its fire station, its apparatus, equipment, facilities, related operational costs. And Alpine County will submit monthly invoices for reimbursements for personnel and approved operating expenses associated with providing these services. The fiscal impact for this is essentially the hourly rates for the chief of $103.09 an hour, and the assistant chief, if needed and or if used, for $50.58. This also includes the county's 15% administrative fee. In addition to the personnel costs, KMPD will reimburse Alpine County for the approved vehicle, fuel, cellular phone, and other authorized operational expenses incurred under the agreement. So we originally asked for 8 hours a week. The county came back with a cost of 4 hours a week. So approximately, we're looking at 4 hours a week of $1,786 a month. For the 6-month contract period, it'd be about $10,000, $10,000 to $12,000. If we decide, or if the board decides, no, we need more time from the county, we'd have to go back and renegotiate the contract, but that would obviously double the cost of this contract for MOA. And then also of note, we should say that these costs don't include overtime costs or other reasonable costs that are associated or written in the contract. That there's no surprise there, I think, on either party. But the MOA will ensure continuity with the fire department's leadership during the recruitment of a permanent fire chief. It'll continue to maintain the operational readiness and emergency reserve response capability. I think it will also enhance the volunteer firefighter training as well as, I know the supervision will be enhanced. And more importantly, provide the experienced administrative oversight during this transitional period that we're going to need. So again, staff recommends the approval of this memorandum of agreement between the Kirkwood Meadows PUD and Alpine County for the provision of temporary fire chief officer services for the period of September 1st through March 1st of 2027. And with that, having the board president the authorization to execute the MOA and to approve any minor changes, substantial administration revisions necessary to finalize the agreement. And obviously, this will all be subject to approval by the district council, who has received the first draft and approved it, but we want to make sure council is on board as well. That concludes my staff report, and then open up to any questions.
Thanks, you, Rick, for the update. I'll note a couple of things that you touched on, but I'll emphasize. One is the section that's up, I think, on the screen is it was important to Alpine County that they had a section here that we identified that we continued our recruitment to make sure we update them and that we're continuing that process. The other thing is the September 1st start date. You'll notice is before our next board meeting, but also before the retirement of our fire chief, and that was purposeful by a couple of days to make sure that there was some overlap between when Rick will still be here and when this contract would start, to make sure that there was handoff in that time period. And then the Board of Supervisors for Alpine County next meet on August 14th. Is that right? 18th. Sorry, I keep saying 14th in my mind for some reason. 18th. And so that the idea would be that if we approve this here and they approved it, that it can go in effect on September 1st. Okay. All right, let's open up for public comment. I don't see any hands up in the room. Oh, go ahead. Just come to the podium, please.
No microphone here, is there?
There's one right here. So
You need one?
no, nope, just right here. Standing here. They can see you on the screen if you stand there,
Okay,
and then you can get heard better. That's all.
okay. Charles McKee, I'm the interim county council until a couple more hours.
All right.
At the end of today. Thank you for providing that draft you provided on the agreement. I made some edits to it and they seem to be mostly in the agreement here. One in particular is that I added in the assistant chief, which was not in the original proposal from the district. By putting in the assistant chief, yes, we had we reduced it from 8 hours to 4 hours, but that's a minimum. So I don't want to necessarily contradict you, Rick, but I don't think you need to go back to the drawing board if there's availability from Eastern Alpine Fire for more services. So it says a minimum of 4. If there's a need for more and the chief or assistant chief are available, you could add additional hours. I just want to make that clarification.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Congratulations. And thanks for spending the last few minutes with us here in Kirkwood. And thanks for all that. We've been working together for a year or two now. So thanks for coming up. All the work on this for the last couple of years. Okay. I don't see any other. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Clint Celio. Doug, I appreciate recognizing the supervisor-elect. But today I'm standing here as just a member of the Eastern Alpine / Woodford Fire Department for 30 plus, well, not 30 plus years, almost 30 years. And not representing Alpine County or fire department or anybody at all. I want to go on the public record of recognizing the volunteers here in Kirkwood and the fire department here. In my entire tenure in service, there's always been a group of folks up here who've been manning the station and going to calls. Like every volunteer department, it comes and goes. But especially in recent years, it's been incredibly strong. And even in the last couple of years, we're always getting, we're not just covering the calls here in Kirkwood, but you're covering the calls all the way to the top of Carson Pass and providing mutual aid assistance to search and rescue. That is phenomenal. And those volunteers who've been doing that are, it's been amazing. In addition to that, during the Tamarack fire, Kirkwood Fire Department sent an engine down there for a week on end, who were down there at whatever hour I requested of them, to be down there and support us and help us, and all those endeavors. So I want to, regardless of how this goes, recognize the commitment of your volunteers and your department up here. I have been doing this for a bunch of years, and I've been to a call or two in Kirkwood myself. There's been hundreds, if not 1,000 or more calls that I've been to up here over 28 years of being on the department. One of which is probably one of the most impactful calls in my career. It's part of Alpine County. It's a special place, just like everywhere in Alpine County. And I want to give you my personal commitment. That's all I can give you. It's my personal commitment to assist the department, to continue to assist the department in any way, shape, or form into the future. So I just wanted to share that on public record, and I'm here to help if you need it.
Thank you, Clint. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. I will say also, our volunteers are great. All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
Confusing. I just wanted to reiterate what Clint said, about you guys volunteers. I've been here almost, over 23 years, doing this too. I've been on hundreds of calls up here with them. I don't think there's ever been any question of their dedication, right? And I'm not sure that's never come into question. And certainly, what's going on with you guys. And Rick's been here, leading this team. Known Rick a long time, worked closely with him, and enjoyed my time with him. So I think in the future, things will go well with the new chief here. And the county will take over for a little while. They pass the torch, and then we'll have a good mutual aid system, and we'll continue to do the job on both sides. It was never, when we needed help down on our side, yeah, you guys came down. When you guys needed help, we came up. So it'll continue to stay that way, I believe, and things will be good. So so let you guys know I'm retiring too, November 1st. So I'll be out in the next couple of months. But hoping to stay on the fire department and do some things like that. So hopefully work some with the volunteers up here too again.
Great. So, well, congratulations on it. Thank you, Tom, for all the support, and congratulations on your impending upcoming retirement. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see any other public comments. All's good. Thanks. I don't see anyone online, so we'll close public comment and move to board discussion.
That seems like a great effort to keep things rolling in the transition. Are things like the facilities and apparatus maintenance, we'll be able to cover that during the interim period too?
Yes, we'll continue to cover those costs.
Thanks. Sounds good. You need a motion?
I would like a motion, yes.
Motion to approve the fire proposal?
I will say, Rick, you gave a lot of good addendums to, like, clerical, giving me authority to sign it and other things. So I would,
So add that to my motion.
yeah.
So you what your motion would be is authorize the board president to execute the memorandum of understanding and approve any minor non-substantive administrative revisions necessary to finalize the agreement subject to approval as to form by district council.
Perfect. So is that your motion?
I'll second that.
There's a second. All in favor, any other board discussion? Okay, all in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. All right.
So we will let Sam Booth know that our board's approved it, and hopefully we can get this on their agenda for
August 18th. Yes.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing now that that's done, real quick?
Go ahead.
It doesn't have anything to do with that.
For sure. We'll make a special assessment.
And Senator Paul Washington, Chief Eastern Alpine Fire. I've been on this fire department since 1986 for Eastern Alpine, Woodford, before there was that. I've seen several chiefs and volunteers come and go for this department. It's been an absolute pleasure working with Chief Ansel. He's been there for this department and for our community as well down there. And I just want to say thanks to you and your department for everything you've done for us. I didn't want to get that in the mix of everything else, but before you go again here in a month, I want to say thank you very much for everything you've done.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that, Paul. And
I would say Kirkwood sits at the intersection of three counties, up two really, and it's notable that Alpine County is so present and appreciative, and thank you.
thank you for saying that, Paul, and I agree. And we'll have more opportunity to talk about those sorts of things in about a month on September 4th. So we look forward to having that.
If I don't call in sick.
If Rick doesn't call in sick, because it'll be embarrassed. But no.
We'll do it at your house. It's not a problem.
It's recorded, so you can listen to it. All right. Thank you for everyone. Thanks for our partners in Alpine County. This has been a long discussion and appreciate everyone's work on this to get us to this point. So thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 9E, community member committee appointment on page 69. This one is a request for Howard Hoffman to move on to EOP committee. And we need to have an agenda item to do community movements apparently. So we do really. I asked the same question, but
It is a board decision to approve something like this. It is okay.
it is.
Yeah.
We do it normally in the December 2-year cycle, so it doesn't feel like it because it's a 2-year cycle. So is everyone? I'll have a motion to.
Currently, we have an opening for another member because Preston Roper is left the valley. So the timing is actually very good.
Yep. So it's up to motion to allow Howard to move from finance to EOP.
So moved.
There's a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Do you have an eye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. It passes. Howard, welcome to EOP.
Finance meetings will never be the same.
I know. Well, Howard gets to work with Peter and I.
I didn't know he was on it.
All right, we'll move on to agenda 9F, and it is a topic of the KMP organization structure. So Brandy will talk about this in the context of where we've been and where we are going.
Absolutely, thank you. So we have here on the board the current organizational chart and the total salary as budgeted. And so you'll see here, we've got a couple of vacant positions. Assistant general manager is vacant. And there's a note here, it's not funded until after Rick's retirement on September 5th. Summer labor, 2 people is vacant also, although we are accepting applications for that right now. And a recent vacancy in electric propane operator 1 or 2. So with Rick's retirement, we've been looking at what can we do to ensure a good framework for the future to get some people in spots that we need them to be with me moving into the general manager position. And so what we are proposing here is to eliminate the AGM position from the org chart and use those funds to create a regulatory compliance position. And I'll touch on this more in a bit in the operations report. But because we have water, wastewater, electric, propane, solid waste, and an off-road diesel fleet, we have a lot of compliance needs, and we need someone to be able to focus on that. So this reorg gives us the ability to do that. It keeps the operations manager position intact, and we continue to have that open. We are looking for that position, and we'll continue to reevaluate that. It puts the fire department over here in its own little slot because it will not be Rick being the volunteer fire chief anymore. It will be, if all goes well, a paid position in fire. And then it just reallocates the summer laborers to kind of our two main departments for the summer. Minimal cost adjustment if we actually fill all of these positions. And
Do you want to maybe mention the footnote on the cost allocation of the fire chief?
yes, thank you for that, because that is important. So this does the total salary here, the $17,99,170 at the top. It includes funding a fire chief position up to 40%. So if we need the flexibility in addition to our fire department budget that we get from property taxes, if we identify an opportunity to do any sort of job share, this 40% funding is included in this proposed org chart, with the remainder of the fire chief funds coming from the fire department budget, which is separate from our regular operating budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this proposal.
Pretty straightforward.
The regulatory compliance would be for like the manganese stuff would be all, like, it would be, this person would specialize in every regulatory that we do.
It would, yes. And so water, wastewater, and electricity all are probably equally weighted as far as how much work that would be for this person. The job description that's been developed would also require certification in water and wastewater as part of this position. It's good for someone to have the knowledge, the working knowledge of what the regulations are, but it would also give us the chance to develop more certification levels and get more people, able to operate our facilities. So that is the thought here. It is slated as a 1-2 position. So somebody who's coming in new could grow into a higher level position within this one slot once they get certified and get their feet under them.
Public comment? I don't see any hands up or anyone in the room. Or discussion.
Yeah, I think it looks great to me.
Yeah, looks good, especially
Yeah.
I like the certifications by it's not just a legal regulatory position, it's got more operational impact.
Or what you do when you have to, as opposed to being proactive.
It would be good, I think, on both counts.
Could you just comment, perhaps for the benefit of those listening in the community, there are 3 conspicuous vacancies, all direct reports, and how they're all budgeted, right? And how do we think about staffing and filling those vacancies? How do we operate without them, I guess, is another question.
And that's a good question. I think with the operations manager and regulatory compliance, there's some overlap based on what I've been doing in the operations manager position. So we are going to, if approved here, we're going to start advertising for the regulatory position as soon as possible, and work to get those filled. But we are internally, with the staff that we have, filling all of the roles right now. It's just a lot of multiple hats for people and, kind of filling in. So we would strive to fill those as soon as possible. As far as fire chief, like we talked about earlier, we do have some applicants, hopefully as soon as the CalPERS designation is
Not
live.
concerned is the short answer. It is worth noting, though, if we go back to that discussion about bringing in outside expertise for the wastewater plant, which is a topic I know several of us would love to revisit. Kidding, I'm just kidding. Our staff is small and accomplishes an incredible amount. It's stretched, wide with all of the utilities and fire and so forth. And so when you look at this org chart, it's a visual reminder of how much you accomplish.
I appreciate that. It is a small staff and we're very lucky to have everyone here and.
That's one reason we often need to lean on outside consultants.
Your motion?
Sure.
Yes.
Motion.
Changing things now.
What's that?
Yes, please, a motion.
Yes. Is there a motion to accept the proposal?
I move to accept staff proposal in this organization chart change.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
Yeah, so again.
Any other board discussion? Okay. Everyone in favor indicate with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not opposed. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, staff. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, administration report.
You get to drive. Tell me if you need to go to big numbers.
All right, hello, everybody. We'll try and keep this to the point quick. And with that, we're going to start with our overview of budget variances. The main story here is in the financial snapshot. May results a positive net income of just a little over $9,000. We budgeted for a loss in the month of May. This results in a positive variance of $33,000 approximately for the month and a little over $170,000. Sorry, nearly $180,000 year to date. Overall performance is favorable to budget. This is driven primarily by strong unbudgeted investment earnings and other revenue, and our lower than budgeted overall year-to-date operating expenses. Were there any other questions on the overview today?
No, I think, finance committee digs through this in pretty much detail, and yeah, the staff did a great job controlling expenses. The reserve investments are close to 300,000, I think, so that's substantial. Cash is way higher than planned, so we don't have any cash concerns. Partly due to cash from operations, but also due to rolling over the RUS payment this past year. So, if you're looking at the high level health, you're looking at is your net income okay? Yes, net income is better than planned. Look at cash in the bank. Cash in the bank looks good. So overall, nice job on managing to the budget this year.
Moving on to the balance sheet. Did we have any questions here on the combined consolidated balance sheet? This is just a summary of the funds in our revenue account. And then the following sheet in our operations reserve account. Any questions on either of these? Okay, moving on to the combined income statement. Any noteworthy variances on this are discussed on the overview, but are there any questions on this? Okay. Were there any questions on any of the individual income statements?
I mean, Chris and I have already been through all this, so
Yeah.
we've already worked through all our detailed questions. So any other board members have any areas you want to drill into?
So for the community, I mean, this gets reviewed in detail once a month by the finance committee, which is what John just said.
Right, if there's no questions here, we can move along to the cash flow report. We look at June preliminaries. This just shows a preliminary look at our performance in June, which was favorable compared to budget. And we'll have more final numbers for June in the upcoming finance meeting and the next board meeting to discuss at that point, but this is just a snapshot of our preliminary revenues. Any questions there or on the following sheet, which is the cash flow statement?
Yeah, cash flow, the highlighted rows are the ones to probably hone in on. And, we have over 2 million in cash. We used to drop below 1 million in a low revenue year. So it also shows the rate plans are keeping us out of precarious situations. So
Moving along to the consolidated balance sheet for K50 501c3 and Playground 501c3. Does anyone have any questions here? And then on the next sheet, we have the income statement just for the 501c3 for the fire department. And this is showing us numbers as of the end of June. Did anyone have any questions here? Okay, I did want to note that for the summer fundraiser we did this year, which was a pancake breakfast, we have recorded about $21,000 in donations from the community. We know of another $9,000 in donations that we should be receiving, which puts us above our goal of $25,000 in cash raised at the event.
It's good to hear.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
well, this is out of form with our agenda. When the job description for the fire chief, is there a item for running an annual fundraiser or a barbecue or something like that? I didn't see it in there.
I don't think it's part of the job description. We can add a miscellaneous duty line in there if you like.
It'd be my
Experience flipping pancakes, I think should be added.
or making barbecue. Yeah.
Make note of that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, can I go for the 10K race too?
Hey, John, you're pushing the agenda already, so let's hold on. Come on.
I also wanted to note here that we have an ongoing letter campaign. We sent donation letters out to our vendor partners and our community base in conjunction with the pancake breakfast about the same time. We're still receiving donations. We recorded another $650 in donations just this week. So thank you to the community members that have donated and support the fire department. We appreciate it.
Wow.
All right, did anyone have any questions here?
Thanks, man.
All right.
All right, we are going to move on to agenda item number 11, operations report. Brandon?
How do you like that calm alignment there, Doug? Pretty good, huh?
I do notice it.
It's not the same.
It's all right. I my weird mission to have our numbers right justified. There now.
Then you gotta do the title.
Board is always adding value.
You gotta do everything.
I know.
So easy to read now.
This changed just.
I know, that bugs me too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
For performance reporting, other than the format change, we'll just, I think, probably, we'll skip down to what everybody actually would like to see, which is the 5-year comparison. We're at the end of the fiscal year, which will let us look kind of how we're doing, over this year versus years past, and what that means in terms of the dollars that we can assign to each of our departments. So if you, I see a formatting issue here. I kept my fiscal year ending. I'll work on that done.
Actually, we've made a really weird on formatting. New Helvetica, maybe?
For electric unidentified system losses, we have established a goal of 12%. This year we did better than that, at 7% for the year. And you can see that that compares favorably to past years. It is still one of the top 2 financial cost is the unidentified use here in electric. Average per year for electric is $130,000 for the year. Propane, our unidentified loss this year was 4%. Our goal is 2%. And as you can see, historically over the past 5 years, we do see some positive and negative losses there. Average year cost of propane losses are about $2,000. For water, this year we are at 11% versus our goal of 15%. So better than in some, but not all of the last 5 years. The cost of these unidentified losses is about $23,000 a year. And then lastly, wastewater, we came in at 41%. Unidentified system losses is a little misnamed for wastewater because it's I&I, it's water getting into the system. It's not being lost. We were at 41% for this year, which really often depends, at least in the last 5 years, on how big of a snow year we had and how much moisture we have coming into the system. The average cost per year for wastewater is about $419,000.
Question about that. If we had better I&I, in other words, lower I&I, would that be better, or would that good or bad for the whole fan noise issue? Irrelevant.
Yeah. It'd be better for electric cost.
Yeah.
And there is
For electric cost, because we'd be processing less.
Exactly, because we pay to process the water. You know, there is no chance we're gonna get to zero I&I,
Oh,
but
no, of course not.
keeping it at a
It's at
reasonable
41 now.
level is a goal here. And I mean, looking at these four utilities, wastewater is certainly the highest cost to us and something that we've been focusing on in operations to try to resolve some issues. And electric is the second. So those are staff's priorities.
Could you remind what the goal was? You mentioned in some of the other utilities, 4% versus 2%, but in wastewater at 41% I&I, what was the goal?
We have never established a goal for wastewater because our
Depends on
losses
weather.
or our I&I has been so variable and high. We have not established a goal. Certainly, we could look at industry standards.
Isn't 41 very high for our last 5 years?
It is high. It means that, you know, 40, almost half of the water that is coming in is not sewage. We've had years that have been higher. Any of the high snow years, I think 2017, when we had the rain on snow events where we just had a lot of water coming in.
This year was relatively light, but it came late. I mean, how do you map the snow conditions from this year to the relatively high 41%?
It is not, unfortunately, as easy to do as that, and probably why historically we've never had a goal here. Our goal is just to try to drive it down because improvements that we have made in the system, and I don't know if anyone remembers, but we made a push in years past to seal up and put these things called cam type lids on some of the manholes in the meadow that are underwater sometimes. And that did make an impact, but year to year, you can't necessarily see the impact because of how variable it is based on snow.
Historically,
All this
40
data-
is pretty good.
40 is good.
We've had 55 and 60 in the past.
Well, you do have a 5-year comparison, and it ranges, I mean, we've had 48, 49 in 22 and 23, and in the 30s the last 3 years. So it's not as if it's outside the ballpark.
But it is
Given the
something-
$400,000, I know we're never going to save $400,000, but to cut that in half would be wonderful.
Yeah, I want to make sure in public comments because there are getting lots of board discussion here. I don't see any hands up in here and not online. Anyone have any questions or comments on any of this? Okay, sorry. Just make sure we.
Absolutely. And to your point, Chris, if we could have this, I think everybody would be just thrilled. As part of the GM goals for next year, reducing losses is on there. And so quantifying some goal for wastewater is a good idea. We do have a 5-year running average here, but
I'm sorry, I've forgotten the process for proposing an agenda item for future meetings. But I would welcome just a recap, a summary of projects that are discussed in EOP, just how one could go after, especially I&I, but perhaps also electric use where we're talking, I think he said $140,000. Just what we are doing, what it would cost, how much it is already in our CapEx budget that maybe in future will help towards this and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, that's been on the EOP agenda to identify the cost benefit of potential options for each of these things is to that's been on EOP agenda and we presented that, I think.
The board's also approved $70,000 the next 3 years to hopefully mitigate some of the I&I as well.
Right.
Well,
Don't these all have different,
For each year, $70,000 for each year.
different attributes as well? I mean, propane changes from liquid to gas, changes with temperature. I&I is probably the most straightforward one. Probably in the Sierras, 35% would be the lowest you could ever get it. Be my guess compared to other, when I've looked to see what other districts do, I don't think you're gonna approach a much smaller number.
Yeah, I'm not in a position to say 41's bad.
Jersey's kind of part of the system, right?
there are some losses built into
Yeah, I
it.
mean, you feel heat and heat's with power.
Right.
So they all seem to have different aspects.
They do.
When you look at a $400 or $200,000 loss, you'd say, well, it's, with electric, I don't know if it's even a feasible recovery.
And with electric, I would be happy to bring this back, after the next EOP to talk about what we're doing to try to solve this, but
Thank you.
you're right, the different utilities will have different results and different losses that we're gonna have just as operating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, electricity is a standard, has a loss built into it.
it does,
Just,
it makes the transformers come.
yeah, transformers on. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for is the noise, right?
Yeah, noise and heat.
The noise and heat, that's what you get out of it, right?
At least we're getting our money's worth.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow.
Exactly. We're paying for it. But yeah. Anyway, I think it's always helpful to see the 5-year comparison. Thank you for that. The one thing I want to make sure, like, I mean, kind of two things that I had in my mind. One is the relationship to usage, right? Like, we're at 7% loss in electric versus 11%. Is that just a factor? Like, I want to try to differentiate what has to do with lower snow, water year, lower electricity use versus we took actions and have objectively made any improvements in our system. And I'm wondering if we can have somehow addendamize, I don't know, add some sort of notes to this to help us understand, like, we have done this and expected this and then saw whatever. Because I think it's easy to say, oh, we went from 14 to 7. That's great. We did a lot of great work there, but we didn't do anything.
Right.
And that's just all these line losses because of fluctuations in usage.
And I think that is one of the reasons I'd like to continue looking at it on a 5-year average, because a lot of these things are, how they're usage dependent. So if we have higher usage in electric, our line losses aren't as significant, or if we have more snow, more water gets into the system. So as we go forward, we can certainly put a note on this fiscal year, we did these improvements in these departments.
Right.
And keep that tracking going forward. But as we look back at it, knowing what the average is really helpful, because
Right.
it does fluctuate from year to year.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we are tracking what we hear, and just saying, and we expect to get this much for whatever this is. Like, that's what I want to make sure we're trying to understand, what are we doing and what are we getting out of it. So, okay. Anything else for operations report?
Yes. I've got a couple other things on operations report, but not performance reporting. Snow removal contracts update. As of today, we received 15 signed contracts out of 22. So that represents about 55% of our expected revenue in snow removal. We had one HOA who did not sign. They went with a different contractor. Small HOA, it represents a 1.5% revenue that we're not going to see. We don't anticipate any changes to our budget accordingly on that one.
Which HOA was that?
That was Caples View.
Oh, okay.
So it came in, he's not on most of it. Right? So
Yes.
one of them's not in the boat yet.
It's on the
One
west
of them
side.
has- One of them has indicated they've already sent us their contract. Yeah, so the two largest ones are either signed or have
Okay, good.
indicated that we're receiving it soon. So this one did not.
No.
We had one HOA reach out to us about an increased contract price due to a snow storage issue. We've had a meeting with them. They've communicated that they're going to seek to acquire some more snow storage, permanent easement or purchase of land, which, if that is received, might impact our ability in a positive way to store more snow. But we're waiting to see on that one. And then the last thing that I have here is our staff has done asphalt inspections to identify areas where repairs are needed in each of the HOAs. That info will go out to the HOAs so that they're aware of these issues. Paving is usually done in the fall here, but we want to make sure that if there's an issue out there, the HOA knows. We're not getting into a situation where we're making a problem worse with the snow removal equipment over the course of the winter. So that will go out to HOAs along with snow stake invoices, which we're anticipating to go out, next month or so.
The snow stake inspection hasn't started yet.
We decided this year to delay it because we wanted to get contract prices out earlier.
Yeah.
And we've had contractor damage over the last few years that ended up with us needing more snow stakes in the
Right.
fall.
Okay.
So unless there's any questions on snow removal contracts, I have one other thing. Okay, water system inspection. So the last thing I have is the State Water Resources Control Board did come out in June. As I mentioned earlier, we have a new engineer that's assigned to us. They come out regularly every 2 or 3 years and do what's called a sanitary survey. And they look at all of our facilities, look at our sampling procedures, and give us a report. The report did identify several items that need attention from us. They've given us a report and we're working on responding to that report. The majority of the items are sampling, either samples that were missed or samples like the manganese that need additional, changes in our procedures. It also were noted that backflow tests need to be uploaded to our annual report. This is all routine things that happen, but certainly something that we have a lot of new staff in water wastewater that has not seen this procedure before, and the opportunity for, to utilize someone in a regulatory position as we go forward to deal with these sorts of things. We expect that we'll have further communication on the sampling, and that we may receive an NOV, which is a notice of violation, for some of the samples that were missed from the time period of 2022 to the end of 2025. So we're waiting for a communication from them on that. And that is all I have for operations.
Ready? I don't see any hands up online, no hands in the room. Any questions for discussion? Okay. All right, move on to agenda number 12, General Manager's report.
Really, it's, the major projects update and timeline. We changed the name a little bit. Working with the board president, you'll notice in the first board packet that got sent out, there were some things removed with staff's attempt to try to reduce some of that stuff. But the reality is it is a necessary tool, and working with Doug, we brought these items back. And so what I've done, and certainly probably will be refined in the future after I'm long gone, is basically revise the major projects update and timeline to include capital projects that were board approved that are over $50,000. And also include contracted consulting work such as the cross connection fee study that we're currently working on now. This project list does not include capital expenses, for example, a new loader and snow removal. It's just basically high level, long-term planning that we'll use to kind of identify, what's going on, like the vaporizer canopy and propane. We're still in the design phase. We hope to get the design back soon so we can plan to build. And the other projects that are listed that you've seen before. The other notable thing here on the bottom is, just election of directors, when that happens, so the board can kind of plan for that as well. The audit procedure, which is moving forward now, and as far as I know, is moving on time, if not. We're providing everything they need on a timely basis. There's no delays. So again, this is just a useful tool for staff and the board to refer from, and certainly could add things, but that's the major projects update, unless there's any questions.
Yeah, I'd ask Rick to just make a guideline as to what should and shouldn't be included on this. And I would just say maybe add the guideline of a footnote in here to say projects included are $50,000 and above or something like that, just so we can reference as to why we remember why we see what we see on here. And as you said, our next general manager might have other opinions on that guideline is, but we'll go from there. All right, any questions about this? Okay. We'll go to agenda item 13, standing committee reports. Finance, John.
Nothing further to add.
EOP.
We're gonna meet next week. Otherwise, I really don't have anything to update you on.
I would just say that I think it will be important for EOP to make sure to discuss all the ROI initiatives that we're doing and making sure that's prepared to come back to the board. Because we've done in the past, but let's just make sure that we're
Right, okay.
well positioned for that. Communications, Chris?
We did not meet in July, but and the newsletter in July was pretty thin. But in June, we quietly upgraded the FAQ. We took the first step, at least, just for electric. It was mentioned in the June newsletter when we kind of wrapped up the electric rate study. So it's a new FAQ. I for one am happy and think it's better. And we'll work on other utilities in the months ahead. But more important. Well, the thing about the FAQ is that I like the idea of the newsletter pointing to it. When we give people an update on any number of topics, often there's something in the FAQ that can help them have more context if they care. So that's, I think, the purpose of the FAQ. Not that someone's out driving around and has a question and wants to call up the FAQs. I understand that. For the next newsletter, we've had the opportunity. I mean, we've had a draft of a heat pump case study from Trevor. So I think we'll probably do that in the next newsletter in a couple of weeks, which tells the story of a successful implementation of a all electric house. So, anything else, Bob? No.
That's good.
Okay. Let's see here. Personnel. We discussed the org chart, which is the agenda item for today's meeting. Nothing else to add beyond that. Bob, IT and cybersecurity.
We didn't meet between the last meeting, but our next meeting, we'll take a look at the incidents that happened in Minneapolis and elsewhere with water systems and make sure that what we have is as airtight as can be. We don't allow external access from the internet into our systems, but we do have employees that use VPNs to access, and the risk is that an employee gets tricked into cooperating unknowingly. And so we'll take a look at all that, make sure we know we're doing the best we can.
Yes.
And that the transformers, in addition to buzzing, they're not on the internet, although a lot of electrical equipment does have software in it. And so that those forms of attack we're safe from.
Utility attacks are in the national headlines, but I kind of figure the global bad guys have better targets than KMPUD.
That's not true.
Oh, really? Elaborate.
They don't care. It's easier to target everything. Our IT systems, at least once a month, get attacked continuously for about 3 days.
Really?
And then it goes away. No, it's cheaper to just attack everything than it is to try to prioritize.
There you go.
So no, we do get attacked.
Connecting Kirkwood to the world.
It won't get any easier with AI. The barrier to entry of attacking with AI and all
It's
these other
just
tools is so low that it's only going to get worse. So,
Yeah.
it just says utility in our name and I don't care that we're just one, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, sure, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, LAFCO did not meet. We'll move on to agenda item 14, temporary advisory committees. Maybe of next steps. I think we've exhausted that topic in our agenda item 9 today.
Yeah. Nothing else to add.
We'll move on to 15, general board discussion. I just had a couple of small items. Does anyone else have anything? The only thing I'll just add is that, we talked about the last July meeting, Rick, Brandy, and I have been going to HOAs. We offered to every HOA contact to speak to them. The last month, we've talked to Meadowstone Lodge's HOA, their meeting, and then next week on Tuesday, the 11th, is the Snowcrest HOA. We'll be speaking to them again. So just some, continually, because not everyone meets on 4th of July, but that offer continues to stand, and we'll meet with HOAs as necessary to continue the outreach. As the first thing I want to mention. The second thing is let me double check. I think Ricky's still here. Ricky Newberry, the general manager of the Mountain Resort. He's been on the call today. He and I met in person a couple weeks ago at this point, and just to chat and catch up. Gave him some updates on everything that we're working on here, but just wanted to, it's something that we've been doing ongoing is keeping that relationship going and talking about things. Again, thanks to we talked about the pancake breakfast, the Epic Promise from Vail Resorts, and Kirkwood Mountain Resort advocating for us from Vail to support that. And Ricky did identify that he wants to continue to support the department and the community in future summers and other events. So we have already started this conversation for the Epic Promise grant for next year. And Amanda, I know you've been running point on that. So thank you for the work on that for this past year and also going forward. And thanks to Vail Resorts and Kirkwood Mountain Resort for support of those things.
Earlier, I raised the question of getting agenda items on in the future. That was in connection with I&I and so forth. Your comment about HOA discussions is great. I, for one, would love to hear or have a discussion about what their top items are. I can imagine what some of them, but in particular, one that was earlier, which is condo level, HOA level EV charging initiatives. You talked about that earlier. I think it's a super interesting and promising one. I hear a lot of little micro movements inside the different big condo communities and a demand for some sort of help or solution. It's vague and I don't know much about it, but anything to drive kilowatt hour usage is always a good thing. And it's a win-win as far as I can tell.
Well, I'll just give you the quick update of like what Rick, Brandy, and I go through on each of these meetings. Our main talking points are some of the things that you would probably expect. So first is all the snow removal, but water, wastewater, electric. We did all these rate studies in this last year. The manganese waiver, which now is slightly different after today's meeting, but potentially, but like that, we've talked about that. Then Rick will do a discussion on the fire department and the search for that. And then I just talk about, our transition and hiring a new general manager this year and how excited we are to have Brandy starting in September and thanking Rick for all of his service. And so those are the kind of key topics that we've touched on with everyone. And then each HOA has separate kind of points that they're concerned about. Sometimes it's snow removal. It could have, when we talked to East Meadows, it was some of the noise. But it's pretty common themes throughout all of them.
Well, then I'll modify my wish just to focus on the condo level HOA EV chargers. What you think the opportunity there might be, or you and EOP or talk.
Well, I mean, I think from the district's perspective, there's what the way it worked at Meadowstone, and I will say, and to any condo HOA out there that I was on the EV subcommittee, and I'm happy, again, this is not me in the KMPD forum. This is me as a homeowner of Meadowstone, happy to talk to people. And we have lots of people who worked on this, but putting the district hat on that, our role is to make sure that there aren't any transformer upgrades that need to happen. And, if there are, how that would work. In our HOA, we were able to connect to our meters that are already existing. So there wasn't really any sort of upgrades needed, but that might not be true for everyone. And so that's what everyone, we've been reaching out to Brandy, and Brandy's been able to work with the HOAs to identify, there will be an engineering study, you have to have, maps and designs to be able to make this work. And the utility district's role is to make sure that we can service you. And if we can't, how would that change and how would you pay for it?
Okay. One last question, and then I'll be quiet till next month. What is the process for a board member, or maybe it requires two in a commissioner or in a board member memo to ask for an agenda item in the future?
So we have a formal form and a process that exists. I mean, I'm looking at you, Bob, because I think this has been around longer than I have, but it's we have a form that you're formally supposed to submit.
One person or two?
I think it's one person.
Okay.
Can submit a request, and then that goes to the board president as a consideration for the next agenda.
Okay.
I would say less formally, you can ask me.
Just okay.
Good. I don't know,
good.
I don't think we need to be overly formal on this at this point.
All right, well, just do that.
You could be the first to use the form, though.
I don't want to be a
deny that opportunity.
I actually used it, but I didn't. All right, I think I might have been the first to use it already.
Oh God, there was my.
I filled it out. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I sent it to Eric. No, I sent it to Eric. Is what I did back in the day. Which you didn't get to you? By the way, with maybe. No, I mean, just send me an email and, you know.
Okay, good.
We try to make the agendas so that obviously it's not like if it's urgent, whatever, we try to balance it. Of course. But, yeah. Okay, with that being said, any other report discussion? All right, I'll just say thanks again to the community. We had lots of people here today. I appreciate the time you all spend to give us feedback and help us make this a better place. So thanks, everyone. We'll adjourn today and meet next on Friday, September 4th, 2026 at 2 p.m. Our general manager's last day. Retirement. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Doug.